When I opened my daughter's notebook, I thought I was about to see her dreams. Instead, I found every reason she hated me. It's strange how silence can sound so heavy. That afternoon, our small house in the countryside was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that hums in your ears, that makes the ticking of the old wall clock feel like a hammer. I remember standing by her door, my hand hovering just above the doorknob. My daughter, Ava, had left for university 2 weeks ago. She'd taken her clothes, her books, her sketch pad, but somehow, this one notebook had stayed behind. It was resting on her desk, the cover half torn, with the word journal scribbled in her messy handwriting. I only meant to move it, to keep it safe until she returned. But then, the first page opened by itself. The wind from the window flipped it, and I saw my name written at the top. Reasons I hate my mother. I froze. My throat tightened, and for a moment, I thought it was a joke. Ava loved writing lists of dreams, of goals, of places to visit. Maybe this was just her dramatic way of venting. But as my eyes followed the ink, I felt something in my chest begin to collapse. She made me feel like I owed her my entire life. She never listened, only controlled. She ruined my chance to be with the one person who actually loved me. She thinks she's a hero, but she's the villain in my story. My knees gave out, and I sat on the edge of her bed, the journal trembling in my hands. The smell of her shampoo still lingered on the pillow, lavender and honey. It used to comfort me. That day, it made me sick. Every line I read was a knife carved into memories I thought were beautiful. Birthdays, graduations, our late-night talks over hot chocolate, all rewritten as evidence of cruelty. How could my daughter, the one I raised alone, the one I gave up everything for, see me as her enemy? The clock ticked again. Outside, the wind rustled the mango trees. And inside, I began to realize that love, when misunderstood, can feel like a prison. My name is Maria, and for most of my life, I believed I was a good mother. Not perfect, but good. I grew up in a small coastal town where people judged you by how clean your porch was and how polite your children sounded. I worked 2 jobs since Ava was a baby, one at the school cafeteria and another cleaning rooms at the local inn. Her father, Mark, left before she turned 1. "You're too much responsibility," he'd said, packing his guitar and his pride into the same old suitcase. I never saw him again. Ava was my world, my reason. Every decision I made, every meal I skipped so she could eat, every night I stayed awake sewing her uniforms was for her. I didn't want her to grow up small like me. I wanted her to dream big, to walk through life without fear of hunger or humiliation. I used to tell her, one day, you'll thank me for being strict. And she'd roll her eyes, muttering, maybe. She was bright, smarter than I ever was. Her teachers adored her. She painted, she debated, she dreamed of studying psychology. I pushed her, sometimes too hard, I admit. But how could I not? When you grow up knowing how it feels to go to bed hungry, you promise yourself your child never will. Our home was tiny, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that smelled of garlic and detergent, and a garden that refused to grow anything but wild mint. But it was filled with laughter once. She used to sit on the floor, painting while I cooked. "You should try art too, Ma," she'd say, grinning, her fingers stained with color. "You'd be good at it." I always smiled, but I never did. I didn't have time to dream. Dreams don't pay bills. Still, there were moments, small, golden ones, that made it all worth it. Like when she graduated high school, holding her scholarship letter. She ran into my arms, tears in her eyes, whispering, "We did it, Ma. We did it." That night, I cooked her favorite rice with coconut milk and fried tilapia. We danced to old songs on the radio. For a moment, it felt like life had finally rewarded us. I thought we'd won. But somewhere in that joy, I didn't notice the cracks forming between us, small misunderstandings, sharp words left unspoken. Maybe love blinded me. Maybe pride did. Because somewhere between raising her and protecting her, I forgot to see her as her own person. It started subtly, months before the notebook. Ava began locking her door more often. I told myself it was normal, she was growing up. But then came the sighs. The late-night whispers on the phone. The mornings when she'd come to breakfast with red eyes and silence sitting heavy between us. Once, I heard her crying through the wall. When I knocked, she said, "I'm fine, Ma." I wanted to push, to know, but I didn't. Sometimes love teaches you to wait. Sometimes that's the biggest mistake. Then, one afternoon, I found a small letter on her desk, half-written, unsent. It was addressed to someone named Eli. The words were raw, young, full of ache. I wish she'd let me choose my life. I'm so tired of pretending. If she knew about us, she'd destroy everything. Us. The word echoed in my mind. I never knew she was seeing anyone. When I asked her that evening, she didn't even look up from her phone. Eli? Oh, just a classmate, she said, too quickly. Then she added, "Can we not do this now, Ma? I'm tired." That night, I stood by her bedroom door, listening again. I heard the faint buzz of her phone, her muffled sob. And for the first time, I felt a strange distance between us, a wall I couldn't see, but she had already built. The wind rattled the windows again, bringing me back to the present, the journal still open on my lap, the ink bleeding into my heart. There were pages filled with her pain, her anger, her reasons. And on the last page, one line that made my breath stop. One day, she'll know what it feels like to lose everything, just like she made me. My fingers went cold. The room spun. And I realized this wasn't just anger. This was something darker. Something planned. I didn't sleep that night. The words in Ava's notebook crawled through my veins like poison. Every page was an accusation, a sentence I couldn't defend myself against. The house, once filled with her music, her laughter, felt foreign. Even the walls seemed to whisper, "You missed it, Maria. You missed everything." At dawn, I made coffee, but it tasted like ash. The sunlight streamed through the window, soft and gold, brushing over the photos on the wall. There was one of Ava at 10, grinning with a missing tooth, holding the stray cat she'd rescued. Another of her graduation, my arm around her shoulders, her smile strained but bright. I stared at those pictures for a long time, searching for clues I'd missed. When did her eyes start hiding from me? When did her love turn into hate? The notebook lay on the table beside me. I hadn't finished it, I couldn't. But every time I tried to set it aside, my mind clawed back to that last line. She'll know what it feels like to lose everything. Lose everything. Those two words haunted me. They weren't written by a daughter in pain. They sounded like a warning. Like a promise. The next week, Ava called. Her voice was flat, formal. "Hi, Ma. Just checking in. You okay?" "I'm fine," I lied. My chest was tight. "You sound busy." "Yeah, classes." "Life." Her tone was distant, like she was speaking to a stranger. "I found one of your notebooks," I said carefully. "The blue one." Silence. Then a sharp inhale. "Oh, you shouldn't read my stuff, Ma. That's private." Her voice wasn't angry, it was cold. Detached. "I didn't mean to," I said quickly. The wind flipped it open. You just couldn't help yourself." Her words were soft, but heavy with accusation. "You always have to know everything, control everything." My throat burned. "Ava, I wasn't trying to control, it's fine," she cut me off. "You always do what you think is best. For you." Then she hung up. I sat there, phone in my hand, trembling. The silence that followed was worse than any scream. I told myself she was just upset, that she needed space. But in the days that followed, I started noticing small things going wrong. The electricity bill doubled, though I hadn't used more power. My bank account showed withdrawals I didn't remember making. At first, I thought it was a system error until I saw the name linked to the new debit card. Marin. Ava. I wanted to believe it was a mistake. Maybe she'd used my card accidentally for her tuition. I called her again. No answer. Then a text came through later that night. "You taught me to survive, Ma. I'm just learning from the best." My heart stopped. Escalation. The first confrontation, I took the next morning bus to the city. The ride was 3 hours, but it felt like days. I rehearsed what I'd say, how I'd stay calm, ask her why, try to understand. But deep down, I already knew. She wasn't just angry. She wanted me to feel the pain she believed I caused her. When I arrived, the university campus buzzed with laughter and energy. Students sat on the grass, sharing snacks and secrets. It was a world Ava belonged to, a world I had sacrificed everything to give her. I found her outside the library. Her hair was shorter, dyed dark auburn. She wore a leather jacket, something I'd never seen her in. Her face lit up when she saw her friends, but the light vanished when she saw me. "Ma, what are you doing here?" "I needed to see you," I said, my voice trembling. "Can we talk?" She sighed, crossing her arms. "About what?" "You already read my diary. What's left to say?" "Please," I whispered. "Just a few minutes." She looked at her friends, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine." We walked to a bench near the fountain. The water shimmered under the sun, catching little rainbows in its spray. I remembered bringing her to fountains when she was little, how she'd laugh, toss coins, make wishes. I wondered what she'd wished for back then. "Why Ava?" I asked quietly. "Why would you take from me like that?" Her jaw tightened. "Because you took from me first." "What do you mean?" "My life, Ma." Her voice cracked, not from anger, but from pain. "You made every decision for me. What I studied, who I talked to, where I went. You never asked what I wanted. I wanted you to have choices I never had." "Exactly," she said bitterly. "You wanted. Not me." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't look away. "Do you remember Eli?" The name hit like lightning. "Yes," I said cautiously. "Your friend." She laughed, but it wasn't happy. "My boyfriend, Ma. The one you called a distraction. The one you scared away because you said love could wait." "I didn't scare him." "You did," she said sharply. "He left because you told him I needed to focus on my future. You made him believe I didn't care. And when he stopped calling, I believed it too. You broke us." I stared at her, stunned. "I was trying to protect you." "From what?" "Being happy." Her voice trembled now. "I loved him. And you decided that love wasn't good enough." Tears stung my eyes. "I didn't know, Ava." "I thought, that's the problem, Ma," she said quietly. "You never thought about what I felt. Only what you thought was right." She stood up, shoulders shaking. "So yeah, I used your card. I took your money. I figured it's only fair. You've been taking from me my whole life." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The fountain's gentle splashing seemed to fade. All I could hear was my heartbeat, thudding like guilt itself. "I gave you everything," I whispered. "And you took everything I was," she said, without turning back. Then she walked away. I sat there long after she disappeared into the crowd, her words circling in my head. Somewhere between my love and her freedom, we had lost each other. And now, I wasn't sure how to find her again. That night, I returned home to find the front door slightly open. The living room was dark except for the glow of the television. The air smelled faintly of jasmine, her perfume. My heart leapt. Had she come home? But when I turned on the light, the truth froze me where I stood. The photo frames were gone. My jewelry box empty. The drawers half open. She hadn't come home to talk. She'd come to take what was left. I don't remember falling to my knees that night, only the sound of something breaking inside me. Maybe it was the last bit of faith I had left. The house looked like a ghost of itself, the curtains half drawn, the floor scattered with memories I didn't know were fragile until now. The framed picture from her first dance recital lay face down, the glass cracked across her smile. The jewelry box I'd inherited from my mother was empty except for a single broken clasp. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I'd promised my mother I would pass it to Ava one day as a symbol of strength. Now, it felt like a symbol of failure. The police came later that evening, after my neighbor, Clara, insisted I call them. She stood beside me, her face pale with concern, whispering, "Maybe it was a break-in, Maria. Don't jump to conclusions." But I already knew. There were no forced locks, no broken windows. Only the faint scent of Ava's perfume lingering like an apology that never came. The officer took notes as I spoke. "You're sure it was your daughter?" I hesitated. The word daughter hurt. "I'm not sure of anything anymore," I said softly. When they left, the silence filled the house again, but this time, it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that holds a question. What did you do to deserve this? That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the only thing she hadn't taken, the notebook. Its pages looked heavier now, almost alive. I flipped to the back, desperate for something, anything, that could explain how love turned to hate. There was a final entry, dated 2 days before she left for college. She'll never see this, but I'm done being her project. I'm not a trophy she can polish and show off to prove she's a good mother. I want her to feel what I felt, powerless, unheard, invisible. I'll take everything she loves, the way she took everything from me. Only then will she understand. My tears blurred the ink. I pressed my fingers against the words as if touching them could change them. But they stayed cold, final, carved with resentment years in the making. I thought about all the times I'd said no to her, no to sleepovers, no to parties, no to art school, no to Eli. In my mind, I was saving her. In hers, I was suffocating her. Maybe both were true. Days passed, but I couldn't bring myself to leave the house. I went through her room again, not searching for valuables, they were gone, but for traces of the girl I once knew. I found old sketchbooks under the bed. In one of them, she'd drawn a mother and daughter, the mother standing tall, the daughter small beneath her shadow. In the next drawing, the shadow had grown claws. I sat there for hours, tracing the lines with my thumb, wondering when my love had started to look like control. Then, one morning, Clara came over with groceries. She was one of those people who spoke gently, as if her words might shatter something fragile. "You can't stay like this forever, Maria," she said, setting down the bag of rice. "She's still your child. Maybe she'll come back." I wanted to believe that. But I also knew Ava. She was her father's daughter, proud, stubborn, sharp as glass. When she made up her mind, nothing could move her. "Do you think I was too hard on her?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Clara sighed. "You were a mother doing what she thought was right. Sometimes love looks wrong from the other side." A week later, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a small photograph, a picture of Ava and a young man. Eli. They stood on a pier, smiling at the sunset. She looked free, happy. On the back, in her handwriting, were 3 words, "You are wrong." I felt the room tilt. My stomach twisted. She wasn't just gone. She was somewhere else, starting over, rewriting her story without me. I sat on the porch that evening, the sky turning bruised purple above the sea. I watched the horizon fade and thought of how I'd taught her to swim when she was 6, how she'd cried, clinging to my arm, shouting, "Don't let go, Ma." And I never did. Maybe that was the problem. The next morning, I went to the police station again. The young officer recognized me immediately. "Ms. Marin," he said, cautious. "Any new information?" I handed him the photo. "She's with him. His name is Eli. She might be using my money." He glanced at the picture, then at me. "You want us to file charges?" The question hung in the air like a moral test. Did I want justice, or did I want my daughter back? I took a deep breath. "No," I said finally. "I just want her safe." He nodded slowly. "We'll keep watch. But maybe, reach out. Sometimes that's what they need." I left the station with a strange clarity. For years, I had fought for Ava, but I had never fought with her. I always made decisions for her, never beside her. That was going to change. That evening, I wrote her a letter. Not as a mother demanding obedience, but as a woman admitting her mistakes. "My dearest Ava, I read your notebook. I know you didn't want me to, but maybe it was the only way I could finally hear you. You were right, I didn't listen enough. I thought love meant protecting you from pain, but I see now that it meant taking away your choices. I thought I was giving you a better life, but maybe I was trying to rewrite mine. I forgive you for taking what you did. I forgive you for the anger, for the hurt. And I hope someday you can forgive me for being blind. I'll keep your room ready. The door will always be open. Love, Mom." I sealed the letter and mailed it to her dorm address. I didn't expect a reply. I only wanted her to know that, for once, I wasn't trying to win. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in weeks. But peace didn't last long. At dawn, I woke to the sound of a car pulling up outside. When I opened the door, there she was, my daughter, standing on the porch with the letter crumpled in her hand, tears streaking her face. For a moment, neither of us moved. The morning air was cool and sharp, filled with the scent of wet earth after dawn rain. The sunlight caught her face, tired, pale, but still my little girl. She looked smaller than I remembered, wrapped in that old jacket I'd bought her years ago. "Ava," I whispered. She didn't answer. Her eyes started toward the ground, then back to me. The letter trembled in her hand, the edges damp with tears. "I wasn't going to come," she said finally, her voice brittle. I almost threw it away. "Why didn't you?" She hesitated. "Because it didn't sound like you." That line cut deep, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. For years, I'd spoken only as her mother, the enforcer, the provider. That letter had been the first time I'd spoken as Maria, a woman trying, failing, learning. I stepped aside, my heart racing. "Come inside." She hesitated, glancing at the doorway like it was some invisible border she wasn't sure she could cross. Then, with a deep breath, she stepped in. The house was quiet, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. She looked around, noticing what was gone, the missing frames, the empty shelf. Her eyes lingered on the bare spots where her photos used to hang. "I know," I said softly. "It looks different." "I didn't mean for it to go that far," she murmured. "I just wanted you to notice me." I sat down at the table, gesturing to the chair across from me. "I noticed everything about you, Ava. I just noticed the wrong things." She didn't sit immediately. Her gaze fell to the floor, her fingers tightening around the letter. "I didn't steal the jewelry to sell it. I wanted something that was mine. You always told me stories about Grandma's box, about how it was passed down, how you earned it. I thought if I took it, maybe I'd earn something too. My independence." My chest ached. "You didn't have to steal it, honey. I would have given it to you." She shook her head. "No, you wouldn't have. Not then." She was right again. For a long moment, we sat in silence, the kind that's thick with everything you've never said. I wanted to reach across the table, to touch her hand, but something held me back. Maybe guilt. Maybe fear. Finally, I said, "You were right about Eli too." Her head snapped up. "What do you mean?" "I was wrong to send him away. I thought I was protecting you from distraction, from pain. But I was protecting you from my pain. I didn't want you to love someone who might leave you like your father left me." She blinked, surprised. "You knew that's why?" I nodded slowly. "I told myself it was for your future. But it was because I was scared. I didn't want to see you broken the way I was." Her eyes softened for a moment, but then she whispered, "He's gone now. He left last year. Said he couldn't wait for me to figure out who I was." I swallowed hard. "I'm sorry, Ava." Tears welled in her eyes, spilling down her cheeks. "You don't have to be sorry for that. I just wish you'd told me. I wish we'd talked like this before everything broke." I stood up slowly, walked around the table, and placed my hand gently on her shoulder. "We can still talk," I said. "It's not too late." She looked up at me then, really looked. Her face was wet, her lips trembling, but in her eyes, there was a flicker of the little girl who used to run to me after school, waving her report card with pride. "I don't hate you," she said quietly. "I wanted to, but I couldn't. I just hated how small I felt around you." I brushed her hair behind her ear. "And I hated how helpless I felt watching you grow away from me." I think we both forgot that love doesn't mean control. It means trust. She nodded slowly, her body shaking as the dam finally broke. And then, after months of silence, anger, and distance, she leaned into me, sobbing against my shoulder. I held her tight. For the first time in years, I didn't say anything to fix it. I just listened. We stayed like that for a long time. When her crying quieted, she whispered, "I read your letter 5 times before coming here." "I didn't know you could say things like that." I smiled faintly. "Neither did I." She laughed, a small, broken sound, and wiped her tears. "You always said forgiveness is strength. I didn't understand it until now. And? It's hard," she said simply. "But I want to try." I reached for her hand. "Then we'll try together." Later that morning, we made breakfast, the first we'd shared in months. I fried eggs while she cut mango slices, just like when she was little. The smell of oil and fruit filled the air, warm and familiar. She caught me watching her and smiled shyly. "You still like your coffee black?" "Yes," I said. "And you still drown yours in sugar?" She laughed. "Guilty." That laugh, I hadn't realized how much I'd missed it until that moment. After breakfast, she helped me put back some of the photos. We left the empty spots untouched as a reminder of what was lost and what we were rebuilding. "I don't know what happens next," she said as we stood by the window. I looked out at the garden. "Neither do I. But maybe that's the point. We stopped trying to control the ending." She nodded. "Do you think we'll ever be like before?" "No," I said honestly. "We'll be better because now we understand each other." That evening, before she left, she placed something in my hand, my mother's jewelry box. The one she'd taken. "I didn't sell anything," she said. "I couldn't. I just needed to hold it until I was ready to give it back." I opened it. Inside, the broken clasp was fixed. A small folded note sat on top. "I can't undo what I did, but I can start again. Love, Ava." My eyes blurred. "You fixed it." She smiled faintly. Maybe we both needed fixing. I pulled her close, holding her the way I used to when she was a child after a nightmare. Except this time, it wasn't her who needed comforting. It was both of us. As she drove away that night, I stood on the porch, watching the taillights fade into the dark road. The wind whispered through the trees, soft and forgiving. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the ache of what I'd lost, only gratitude for what I'd found again. When Ava left that night, something inside me shifted. The house was still quiet, but it didn't feel empty anymore. There was a strange calm, not the fragile kind that comes before a storm, but the kind that follows one. The kind that smells like wet soil and second chances. For the first time in months, I slept without fear. The next morning, the light coming through the curtains didn't feel harsh, it felt like forgiveness. But peace has its own kind of noise. Whispers. Judgments. In a small town like ours, nothing stays private for long. 2 days later, I went to the market for groceries. People stared. Some smiled, some didn't. Clara rushed to my side, her voice low but urgent. "Maria, I heard Ava was here. Is everything okay?" I forced a smile. "It's better. We're talking again." She touched my hand gently. "People are saying things, you know. About the theft. About you calling the police." I sighed. "Let them. I don't owe them explanations." She smiled softly. "That's new for you." Maybe it was. For years, I'd built my identity around being the good mother, the one everyone praised for her sacrifices. I'd let that image become my armor and my prison. Now, I didn't need it anymore. I wasn't perfect, and I didn't want to be. I wanted to be real. When I got home, there was an envelope waiting on the doorstep. It wasn't from Ava this time. It was from the police station. Inside was a short note. "Your daughter came by to make things right. She repaid the amount withdrawn. Said it was time to return what wasn't hers. Thought you should know." I smiled through tears. It wasn't about the money. It was about what that gesture meant. Ava was growing, not because I forced her to, but because she chose to. That night, I lit a candle by the window and whispered a quiet prayer. Not of asking, but of thanks. The next Sunday, I went to church. I hadn't been in months. When I walked in, whispers followed me like shadows. Mrs. Ramos leaned toward her friend, murmuring just loud enough for me to hear. "That's her, the one whose daughter ran away and stole from her." Another voice chimed in. "A shame. After all that sacrifice." For a second, I froze. The old me, the woman who cared about appearances, who needed validation, would have walked out. But I stayed. When the pastor began his sermon, I listened. He spoke about mercy. About how love without forgiveness is just control dressed as care. And in that moment, I felt something release inside me, the last knot of guilt I'd been holding onto. When the service ended, Mrs. Ramos approached me, her expression hesitant. "Maria," she said, "I didn't mean." I stopped her with a small smile. "It's all right. You don't have to explain. We all raise our children the best way we know how. Sometimes that means we fail before we learn." She looked surprised, maybe even humbled, and then nodded. "You're stronger than most." I laughed softly. "No, just finally honest." Weeks passed, and Ava began visiting more often. She'd help me in the garden, her hands digging into the soil beside mine. The first time she laughed again, truly laughed, it startled me. It was the same laugh she had as a child, wild and unguarded. One afternoon, as we planted new seeds, she said, "I've been thinking about switching my major." I looked at her. "To what?" "Art therapy," she said, eyes bright. "I want to help people heal through what helped me." I smiled. "That sounds perfect." She grinned. "You're not going to tell me to be practical?" I shook my head. "Not this time." She leaned over and hugged me. "You're learning." I laughed. I had a good teacher. A few months later, the local community center hosted an art fair for young students. Ava had a small exhibit, a series of paintings titled The Space Between. Each canvas showed two figures, sometimes close, sometimes distant, but always reaching toward each other. One piece caught my breath, a woman and a girl standing under rain, their shadows merging into one. People gathered around it, whispering. Someone asked her, "Is this about your mother?" Ava smiled softly. "Yes, it's about how love can break and still come back stronger." I stood in the back, my heart swelling with pride and humility. When she found me in the crowd, our eyes met, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was looking at my little girl. I was looking at a woman I deeply respected. After the show, people came up to me, their tone different now. "Your daughter's work is beautiful. You must be proud." I didn't realize she was so talented. I just smiled and said she always was. That night, Ava and I walked home together. The moon hung low and the air smelled of rain. "Do you ever think about the notebook?" I asked quietly. She nodded. "I burned it." "Really?" "Yeah," she said, smiling faintly. "I didn't need it anymore. I was carrying too much anger, Ma. It wasn't helping me grow. It was just keeping me small." I took her hand. "You didn't have to burn it for me." "I didn't," she said softly. "I did it for us." Later, as we sat on the porch, sipping tea, she said something I'll never forget. "You know, Ma, for a long time I thought you were my villain. But maybe we're just the story's beginning." I laughed through tears. "And what are you now?" She smiled. "The author." I nodded slowly. "Then write something beautiful." That night, after she went to bed, I sat by the window, looking out at the stars. In that quiet, I realized something. Motherhood isn't about shaping someone into who you think they should be. It's about standing beside them while they become who they're meant to be, even if it means losing them for a while. I whispered into the night, "Thank you, Ava, for teaching me how to love without fear." And in that stillness, I finally felt free. It's strange, isn't it, how the things that once shattered you can someday become your peace. It's been 2 years since that morning Ava came back to my porch with her crumpled letter. 2 years since I found that notebook that changed everything. Our life now isn't perfect, and I think that's what makes it beautiful. She still lives in the city, still calls every Sunday, sometimes forgets, sometimes remembers halfway through Monday. I still cook too much food when she visits, still scold her for not eating enough vegetables, still hold her a second too long when she hugs me goodbye. But the difference is, we talk now. Really talk. A few months ago, she invited me to her first art therapy exhibition. The theme was healing the invisible. She'd asked her students, people recovering from grief, trauma, heartbreak, to paint what forgiveness looked like. One painting stopped me in my tracks. It showed a pair of hands, one old, one young, mending a cracked ceramic heart with gold. Beneath it, a small plaque read, "Kintsugi, the beauty in what's been broken." When I asked her about it later, she smiled and said, "That's us, Ma. We broke, but we didn't stay broken. We became something stronger." I couldn't speak. I just hugged her. In that moment, I realized the truest form of love isn't about never breaking. It's about learning how to rebuild with grace. Some nights, I still think about that notebook. How one small discovery nearly destroyed everything I believed about love and motherhood. But maybe that was necessary. Sometimes, what we call a betrayal is just a mirror, showing us the parts of ourselves we refuse to see. I thought I was giving Ava a better life by shielding her from pain. But she didn't need a shield. She needed a witness. Someone to stand beside her, not in front of her. If I could go back, I wouldn't erase the mistakes. Because without them, we would never have found the truth that saved us both, that love and control cannot share the same heart. A few weeks ago, Ava came home with a small gift. When I opened it, I almost laughed and cried at once. It was a new notebook. On the first page, in her handwriting, she'd written, "Dear Mom, this one's for us, not to list what we lost, but to write what we've learned." We started filling it together. One page every Sunday. Some pages are about our memories. Some are about forgiveness. And some are blank on purpose. She said, "We'll fill those later when we're ready." I keep that notebook beside my bed now. It's proof that sometimes the story doesn't end where it breaks. It just begins again, softer, slower, but stronger. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt like someone you love turned against you, if you've ever looked at your child, your parent, your partner and thought, "Where did I go wrong?" Maybe it wasn't about being wrong. Maybe it was about learning what kind of love you both needed to grow. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. It just changes what comes next. I learned that from my daughter and from a notebook I was never meant to read. Would you have opened it? Would you have wanted to know the truth, even if it broke your heart? Tell me in the comments. And if this story touched you, please don't forget to subscribe, because somewhere out there, another mother, another daughter, might be waiting to find their way back to each other, too.